Today we want to talk about a huge segment of the economy that doesn't work for the benefit of Kenyans. And this is the sports economy. As you probably know, football is huge in Kenya, and it generates a lot of revenue in the billions, as the sport betting companies proved. There's a lot of money flowing in that economy. Yet paradoxically, Kenyan football players are some of the most poor, indigent, unsuccessful footballers anywhere on this earth. So you wonder, there's all these billions flowing in the football economy, yet the football players are completely poor, and the football teams struggle financially. They're always begging these companies for sponsorship. And you sit down and you try and ask yourself, why is the situation like this? Because it almost is like it doesn't make sense. When you think of the revenues that accrue from just football itself, from t-shirt sales, football sales, TV viewership, all the sports bars that promote football merchandise, the advertisers who advertise when football is playing on TV, the companies that use a football theme to push their products during certain tournaments, the amount of money is a lot. And the poverty amongst the football players is very high. And no one says stop, just stop right there. Time out. Let us question what is going on in the Kenyan football economy. So what is peculiar about this situation is that the footballers themselves, they live in poverty, and they never question the system that keeps them in poverty despite the economy generating billions in football sales. And this is something that you see amongst Kenyan men. A total acceptance of the situation as is. They never seek to change the situation. Neither do they seek to understand the situation. They accept the system as is and do not resist. Like we've said before, the slave culture, the culture amongst slaves, is one of the highly valued traits in a slave society. Amongst the men in a slave society is the trait of docility. You don't question anything, and you don't seek to change the system. The system tells you that you belong at the bottom, and you never seek to change that. So for years and years and years, you remain at the bottom, never questioning it. Because questioning things, being aggressive, these are not traits that are allowed in a slave society. And so this is something that it's a dynamic that occurs in the minds of the Kenyan man. And so you find that of all the TV viewership for football as a market segment, almost 98% is dominated by foreign football. British football, European football. Now we are talking about market share. We are not talking about anything else. Don't look at this situation from an emotional point of view, because many of you will get into your emotions. You'll start to talk the way you like them, Zungu, I don't know what. No, let's not talk about emotions or what you like and what you don't like. Let's talk about market share, and let's talk like grown men. Okay? We are talking about market share. Now, 98% of the Kenyan football market share is controlled and dominated by European football, British football, right? And billions are flowing in this market. So while you're watching that football, who's making the money? Someone is making the money. Someone is always making the money. Anytime you switch on your TV and there's European football playing, someone is making the money, because someone is paying for that game for you to see it. And there's an advertiser advertising during that game, and they are paying whoever produced the game for the right to advertise when the game is playing. So there's a lot of money flowing, and that money is not going to Kenyan footballers. So our market share has been taken away. I'm not even a footballer. So what is curious is the fact that the footballers themselves in Kenya appear to accept this situation very passively. They seem to look that someone is taking away food from their mouths. Mtu anakutoa ugali kutoka mdomo yako, and you don't say anything. The Kenyan man will never say anything. They go straight into their slums, because many of them are extremely poor, and they never say anything. And they see all these foreigners, all these foreign footballers becoming billionaires, even buying private jets. And it never occurs to them that they are losing market share to the foreign game, that they should stand up and fight for market share. You know, let me tell you, if I was the Kenya Football Federation, if I was running that organization, I'd be in court every single day, suing every TV station, suing all these satellite TV providers, suing the Ministry of Sports. I'd be suing all these people that are bringing in foreign games into Kenya. I'd be suing them for market share. I'd be fighting like a madman for market share. Because you can become a billionaire just from football in Kenya. But KFF never does anything. Why don't they do anything? Well, because they are Kenyan men. And so they exhibit the traits of a slave society. And one of the traits, and I'll keep on coming back to this anytime I talk about Kenyan men. The values of a slave society mean that you never stand up against the master. Now, so it's very difficult for KFF to fight against European football, because in fighting against European football, they would be fighting against the very same gods that they go in church and worship. They're fighting against the master. And you're not supposed to fight against the master. You're not supposed to exhibit any kind of aggression against the master. You're supposed to smile at the master. Even while he's beating you up or violating your wife, you're supposed to smile and not resist. So KFF never resists. And so they lose billions. The footballers the players themselves should be able to sue some of these, the people importing the British game into Kenya. They should be able to sue them in order to keep market share. This is about market share. Just think, if you're a footballer watching me, just think if 98% of the football games shown in Kenya were Kenyan games. It means that you'll become famous. Isn't it? That's number one. People will get to know you. And if you're a good player and you know how to merchandise, people will buy your t-shirt. Your jersey, your football jersey, they'll buy it, right? And you may make some money from it. Now think, if the market is 40 million people, now not everyone is a fan of football, but let's say, for argument's sake, that 20% of the adult population is a fan of football, and you become a very popular player, and everyone wants your shirt, your t-shirt, the shirt that has your name on the back. How much money do you think you'll make? You'll probably be selling 1 million shirts every year. And if you're making 100 bob per shirt, how much money is that? That's 100 million. From nothing but merchandising. And that's just a simple shirt. You could be selling so many things. People sell dolls, people sell all posters. Merchandising is a huge revenue source. When you become famous in football, people become billionaires from merchandising deals. Forget me about your salary from the football team. But for some reason, which we already know, you have the slave mind, you as players will never come together and fight for market share. You control like 2% of the Kenyan football market, which means you're losing 98% of the market, 98% of the revenues. You should become billionaires. You deserve it. It's your country. So it's very interesting how African men in Kenya can never stand up for themselves. That someone will come and take food from your mouth and you don't resist. And for the Kenyan men who are not football players, not a single Kenyan man will stand up and question, why are we watching European games? He will never question that. He accepts the system as is. The system that says the foreigner is up and we are at the bottom. In fact, the Kenyan man will say this proudly. You know me, my team is Arsenal. Very proud. He knows everything about the European game. Everything. He knows which player broke his leg last week. He knows which player had an argument with his girlfriend. All the way in London. He knows all that. But ask him, what is the name of 2 players from a local team? He doesn't know. And worse still, he doesn't care to know. And in fact, Kenyan men refer to themselves, this is how bad the situation is. In terms of the British teams, they make fun of each other at you people of Arsenal, you people of Manchester United. And they're so proud. You know, my team is Manchester United. And these are grown men. I mean, the brainwashing is so deep. The erasing of identity is so complete that a grown man will say how proud they are that the market share for football is going back and has gone back to the colonizer. He's proud that the British are making a lot of money from the Kenyan market. Proud. The Kenyan man never stands up for himself. Or maybe he does. Maybe he does. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he does. Maybe when he's fighting for Arsenal, when he's fighting for Manchester United, he's actually fighting for himself, because on the inside, he truly believes that he's a Mzungu. So he believes that he's fighting for Arsenal because he's a Mzungu. He's a coconut. And so this thing of becoming coconut has spread so much that the population, almost all the population, believes that they are also coconuts, that they are Mzungu on the inside. So when something happens to Arsenal, they shed tears. We've had African men committing suicide when a British football team lost a tournament. Think of the mental psychosis that is happening right now in the brains of the Kenyan men. It's a mental illness. I mean, Kenyan men are mentally ill. And so when you see the consequence, it would be fun. It could be, it's just soccer. It's just football. It makes no difference. Well, when you look at the devastating poverty in Kenya, you realize that this is not a game. This is not a joke. This is very serious. So how do we alleviate poverty with a population that is like that? How do you fight poverty when your men behave like that? You almost can't win. It's an almost no-win situation, because the people themselves love the idea of being poor. No, they say they don't enjoy being poor, but every single action they take perpetuates that poverty. So you can't have it both ways, Mr. Kenyan man. You can't have it both ways. You cannot both be a slave and rich. You either will become a slave and poor, or free and rich. You can't have it both ways. Other countries, I see other countries, people fight for market share like crazy. You go to England, that England you love so much. You try and go and take over the broadcasting rights for the Kenyan game. In other words, go to England and try and make them watch Kenyan games and not watch English games. Yeah, go take over all the TV stations and stop broadcasting their own games and start broadcasting your games from a different country. See how they react. They don't play these slave games. They don't have time for that because they are thinking in terms of revenue. You're trying to take food from their mouth. So they don't tolerate that kind of game. But not only do you tolerate that kind of game, you glorify in it. You glorify in it. You're proud that the British game has developed so much in Kenya. But you're not proud that the Kenyan game hasn't developed at all. So when you encounter a Kenyan footballer or any other Kenyan man, basically you're dealing with someone who's mentally ill. Even the soccer players in Kenya refer to themselves in terms of British teams. Can you believe it? You'll find someone playing for, I don't know, Tusker United or Gor Mahia, referring to them that I am an Arsenal person. This is mental illness. So the Kenyan man has ceded the entire market when it comes to football to foreigners. And so all the billions that are being generated every single day go back to England. England does not need to steal anything from Kenya. They don't need to steal anything. No. The brainwashing of the Kenyan man is so complete that the Kenyan man will hand over the billions to the British without being forced to, and will be proud that the British are making all this money. He will wear an Arsenal shirt, but he will never wear a Gor Mahia shirt. He will buy merchandise straight from England, but he will never buy Kenyan merchandise. Never. And so the foreigner continues to make more money, and the Kenyan continues to live in the slum. And what is even more bizarre is that this Kenyan man can never see what we call cause and effect. He can never see how he himself is the source of his own poverty. Can never see it because of a total lack of critical thinking skills, which is an entirely different story altogether. And so the tragedy of extreme poverty continues in Kenya. Now here at the Church of our concern mostly is not which football team you like. We are not really concerned about your personal preferences and what you like and what you choose not to like. We are not interested in taking away your freedom. Us, we are only concerned about the economic impact of your choices, that you're choosing poverty. And we are trying to alleviate poverty because poverty is the enemy. The British game is not the enemy. The poverty is the enemy. So we are simply saying that it's time we took the 98% market share and leave the British with the 2% market share. When I switch on the TV in Kenya, I should not be watching European football. I should be watching Kenyan football. We should develop our own game because it can create a lot of employment, a lot of opportunities for a lot of people who live in the slums. Because a lot of these football players, generally, they come from the slums and from very economically depressed rural areas. So how do we get money into their pocket? Because we want to get money into their pocket. We want them also to have private planes. Why not? Why can't Kenyans have private planes? Why can't our footballers have private planes? Why not? I mean, when you look at the athletics side of it, the Kenyan athletes, the runners, the people who run, they've made serious money. And they've done amazing things in their communities. They've built buildings, hotels, started businesses. They're a source of income for their particular areas where they come from, isn't it? So why can't we have the same in football? If we are able to export our runners and they're able to bring the country a lot of revenue, why can't we export our football players and bring the same revenue or even more revenue into the country? Why can't our football teams be as large as some of these other football teams? We obviously have the talent, but it's not being developed because of this national obsession with the Mzungu. Because the mentality of the Kenyan man is the same as the mentality of a 2-year-old child. If you've ever spent time with very small children, you'll realize that they have to be looking at their mother all the time. Their eyes are always on their mother. If their mother moves left, their eyes move left. They keep their eyes on their mother at all times. So if the mother goes into a different room and the child cannot see the mother directly, the child begins to cry. They have to keep eye contact with their mother at all times. Now, the African man in Kenya is exactly like that. He has to keep eye contact with the British 24/7. An endless obsession. Always, Mzungu amefanya nini? Oh, amefanya nini? Oh, amefanya nini? It never stops. I'm simply saying it's time to grow up. Why? Because there's billions to be made. There's serious money to be made in the football business. If all those billions were coming into Kenya, we could have better stadiums. We could create a lot of employment. A lot of employment. And the talented people would have an outlet for their talents. I mean, you should aspire to do other things other than just become a hawker, because poor kids in the slum, they grow up to become hawkers, to become thieves, and to become prostitutes, because all avenues of escape have almost been blocked. So we are saying open up opportunities for the poor people so that a young man has an outlet other than just being forced to go into crime. They can go into soccer and do something for themselves. So basically, in conclusion, I want you to be thinking about everything in terms of market share. Everything that happens, always think of the money that you could make and the money that you're losing right now. So we would call upon the Ministry of Sports and the KFF. Fight for the market share. Fight for it. We are calling upon the footballers themselves. Fight for the market share. You could become a billionaire. It's not a joke. Fight for market share. Sue everyone. Form an association. If KFF will not do anything, form a footballers association. Maybe you even have one. Sue everyone. Sue the Ministry of Sports. Sue them. Sue the TV stations. Sue the satellite stations and seek damages because they are costing you billions. Sue all of them. Block foreign football from eating into your market share. You have less than 2% of the Kenyan market when it comes to football. You should be suing, you should be having 98% so that you too become rich. How long are you going to be a slum dweller? How long are you people going to be poor? Every single time there's a scandal. You go to a foreign country to play games. The hotel hasn't been paid off. You're sleeping on the floor. Scandal after scandal after scandal. All this suffering. Yet the football market in Kenya is worth billions that you're not making. That because Mzungu ndio Mungu. You have to stop this. You have to stop this. It's time to grow up. It's time to make money. Grow up. Stand up. Challenge the system. Challenge the system. The system that says you should be down and other people should be up. They should make money, you should be broke. And if you're afraid of challenging the system, come and join us. Us, we're not afraid of challenging any kind of system. We challenge everything. And we are challenging this system. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and comment below. Kenya's time has come. Our time has come. Your time has come. A time to succeed and not fail. A time to grow wealth and not poverty. A time to go up and not down. It's time for you to stop walking and drive your car. Stop renting and buy yourself a house. It's your time to get blessed. Join the CCV movement and together let us kick poverty and unemployment out of Kenya. Become a member today. Donate what you can. And remember that the CCV is the only political organization in Kenya that is squarely built upon